What is up, ladies and gentlemen? But most of all, you ladies out there, thanks for clicking on another episode of Break the Silence. I am your host, Cyborg. Chaos ensues. Split cow! We just got massive breaking news out of the NBA as the Brooklyn Nets have traded all-star guard Kyrie Irving, Markieff Morris, and a future first-round pick to the Dallas Mavericks for Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney Smith, and 3 future picks. This was absolutely wild as the weekend got crazy when Kyrie Irving requested a trade on Friday. Now, nothing that Kyrie Irving does surprises us, but it seemed like things were starting to go good in Brooklyn. He obviously had his problems earlier in the season where he was suspended by the team for, whatever happened with what he posted, and got back on the court and was playing basketball at a high level. And it started to seem like the Brooklyn Nets were potentially a team to be reckoned with. And then Kevin Durant got hurt. They fell a little bit in the standings to the 4 seed, but it still felt like when Kevin Durant came back, they were going to be one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. And then on Friday, Kyrie Irving requests a trade. Now, what I see from there is that potentially Kyrie Irving wanted to play his value back up. As soon as all those suspensions came out and everything that happened earlier in the year, Kyrie Irving's value had never been lower. And it was interesting to see if any team would have even taken a flyer on Kyrie Irving at that point. So he went back on the court, put his head down for a couple months, and played basketball at a supremely high level and worked his stock back up to the point where we are right now, where he requested that trade on Friday. Now, it'll be very interesting to see the relationship between Kyrie and Kevin Durant. I haven't heard much in regards to that, but I know that they were best friends in that they loved playing basketball together. So it's very interesting to see what this means for Kevin Durant and the Brooklyn Nets going forward. There's so much to look at this trade. One, how the Dallas Mavericks, what this looks like in their lineup. They were already a very ISO-heavy basketball team. Kyrie Irving kind of will add to that. How will he play alongside Luka Doncic? What does this mean for the Brooklyn Nets? And I also want to touch briefly on the Los Angeles Lakers because everyone and their mom thought that Kyrie Irving was going to the Los Angeles Lakers, even though I had real hesitations if that was going to happen because we've seen how reluctant their front office is to do anything. So let's talk about that as the NBA trade deadline approaches. We are going to see some massive moves. We have some huge names left that could potentially be traded. Sounds like a lot of teams are now interested in Kevin Durant. The Phoenix Suns have already reached out about Kevin Durant, and multiple other teams, they said on Friday, were calling in and checking on the status of Kevin Durant. Zach LaVine, OG Anunoby, it sounds like will be on the way out. DeAndre Ayton was clearly unhappy in Phoenix for a while. Bojan Bogdanovic, John Collins has been in trade rumors forever. Does this mean Ben Simmons gets moved on in Brooklyn? That would be an interesting trade. And then Russell Westbrook, obviously, is another one. So, and Bones Highland for the Denver Nuggets. And there's plenty other trades that are potentially out there that we'll wait to see. So this trade deadline should be really, really explosive and exciting. Before we get into the actual topic at hand, take a second to subscribe to the channel. We are at almost 1,000 subscribers, and we have been grinding like crazy as of late, posting a ton of content. So please take a second to subscribe to the channel. So the Dallas Mavericks lineup now features Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Tim Hardaway Jr., Christian Wood, and then it'll be very interesting to see who they put in that 5th spot. You could have Maxi Kleber when he comes back from injury. You could have Dwight Powell. You could try to go small ball, play Christian Wood at the 5. But it'll be very interesting to see what the Dallas Mavericks do with that lineup. Now, let's talk about some of the things they'll do really well. Isolation-wise, Luka Doncic is number 1 in the NBA in field goals made in isolation. Kyrie Irving is number 2 in the NBA in field goals made in isolation. So when it comes to getting a tough bucket and a guy that can, perform when the game gets slow in the playoffs, these guys will be able to get incredibly tough buckets at all times. And I think that that'll be a huge asset when you're talking about a big playoff series, a game 6, a game 7, when the game is tight and you need a guy to go out there and just get you a bucket. And that's so valuable in the NBA. You don't realize it until you get to the playoffs, how much you need a guy like that. In the Western Conference, there are not a lot of big twos, I would say. 2 guys on the same team that are top 20 players. The thing we saw a few years ago were big threes. The LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, KG. Even the Warriors kind of had a big four. And then it kind of transitioned a little bit into big twos, the Kawhi, Paul George, LeBron, Anthony Davis, KD, Kyrie. We kind of saw a transition from the big three to the big two. And now in the Western Conference, you have very well-made teams kind of in general. The Denver Nuggets have a bunch of good players. Jokic is clearly a top 20 player, but then beyond that, Jamal Murray is, just outside of that. Aaron Gordon's a very good player. The Memphis Grizzlies have Ja Morant, who's definitely a top 20 player. Jaren Jackson Jr., probably right outside of that as well. The Sacramento Kings, De'Aaron Fox, Sabonis, both very good players, probably both top 30, 40 players, but not top 20 guys. So the Dallas Mavericks are now in a position where they potentially have the most top-end talent in the Western Conference when you have two players like that. But there are other holes on this roster that I think will be really interesting. You're trading away one of your best defenders in Dorian Finney Smith, bringing in a guy like Kyrie Irving who, tries on the defensive end of the court, but no one's going to confuse him with Gary Payton. So a team that was 24th in defensive rating potentially just got a little worse on defense, but they also might end up with one of the best offenses in the NBA because we've seen what Luka Doncic can do. We've seen what Kyrie Irving can do, but it'll be very interesting to see how those two guys play together. Luka Doncic has never really got to play beside a second star. Kristaps Porzingis they try to bring in. He's a nice basketball player. He's a good basketball player. Him and Luka just, Kristaps, quite frankly, couldn't really stay on the court enough to make that work. They brought in Christian Wood, again, a good basketball player, but neither of those guys are on the level of Kyrie Irving. Luka Doncic is averaging 33.4 points, second in the league, 8.9 rebounds, and 8.2 assists. Kyrie Irving, on the other hand, 27.1 points, 5.1 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 48.6% shooting. Like I said, the Dallas Mavericks were the highest ISO team in the NBA. They just added probably the second best ISO player in the NBA. The Dallas Mavericks, though, had to make a move. They had to make a move to get Luka Doncic a second star because what we've seen in NBA history is that if you don't get, and maybe not even in NBA history, in the last 20 years, if you don't get one of those guys, one of these elite level basketball players, a young stud like a Luka Doncic, LeBron James, Kevin Garnett, if you don't get those guys another star to play alongside them, they will then be looking for another place to go. In fact, Kobe Bryant obviously started with Shaquille O'Neal and then had some years of struggle. Asked for a trade, they ended up getting Pau Gasol. The rest is history there. Kevin Garnett got traded to the Boston Celtics. LeBron James left in free agency to the Miami Heat. So it is important and imperative that an organization makes these star players feel like they're really trying to win a title. That's what we saw the Milwaukee Bucks do with Giannis Antetokounmpo. They went out and they got Drew Holiday and they gave up a lot for him, but it was worth it because they won a title and they were able to keep Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, the NBA is going to be very interesting as this trade deadline approaches on Thursday. There's still a lot of big names that could potentially be traded. And the big question mark is, what is the Brooklyn Nets plan for Kevin Durant and for Ben Simmons? Those are two guys that are now being called, people are calling about Kevin Durant a lot reportedly and asking what the status is on him. He would bring in a huge haul for the Brooklyn Nets, but he has multiple years left on his contract. Are they wanting to try to go all in this year? I think the trade's a little interesting for the Brooklyn Nets. When you bring in Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney Smith, you're okay. I don't know that you would have any chance to compete at a high level against Boston, against Milwaukee, or even against Philadelphia in the Eastern Conference. Kevin Durant gives you a chance against anyone, but I don't think that you'd really have a real shot. How much you struggled against Boston last year, losing Kyrie Irving, who kept him in game one, was unbelievable in game one. I don't know that Brooklyn would really have a real chance there. So the Brooklyn Nets, do you try to get off this Ben Simmons contract and see if you could bring in, could you trade him to the Spurs for a Jakob Poeltl kind of guy? The Spurs have a ton of cap space. Maybe they would see if they could try to revitalize Ben Simmons' career. If you're the Brooklyn Nets and you're trying to win right now, maybe Jakob Poeltl would bring more value to you than a Ben Simmons. So maybe you try to make a move like that. Or you completely blow it up. You get rid of Kevin Durant. You realize, hey, we made a mistake. We kind of failed in this instance with the James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving era. And we're going to restart and get assets out of Kevin Durant while we still can. I think, realistically, I don't think the Brooklyn Nets will trade Kevin Durant. And I think the reason being they have multiple years left on his contract, and he's good enough to really make any team competitive and sell tickets. So if you're looking at Kevin Durant, I don't think the Brooklyn Nets will trade him. But there's multiple other guys on the table that could still be traded. Zach LaVine, OG Anunoby, DeAndre Ayton, Bojan Bogdanovic, John Collins, Bones Highland, Russell Westbrook. And the Los Angeles Lakers were obviously the team that was linked to Kyrie Irving. We've seen Kyrie Irving play with LeBron James in the past. The Lakers have really been struggling and needed a big move. And this kind of a lot of people felt like this was the logical choice for Kyrie Irving. But quite frankly, the Lakers have proven that they do not want to give up those 2 future picks. We've seen that time and time again, that they're very reluctant to do so. In fact, their front office said, we don't want to do that unless we're going to win a championship. And if you feel like as you're the 13 seed, you don't want to mortgage that future, then you're not going to go out there and sign Kyrie Irving. More so, you would have to get, the rumors are that he wants a $200 million contract. And I don't think the Los Angeles Lakers were willing to do that. So that's why, in my opinion, I didn't think the Lakers were actually going to get him anyways. I thought it would be one of these other teams that maybe we didn't expect. So obviously LeBron James is going to be upset. The Los Angeles Lakers are going to be a team that is rumored for every star. And that's why it's almost frustrating as an NBA fan. Every time someone is a little unhappy or a guy's rumored in a trade, it's like the Lakers are the number one team that they're expected to go to. And it almost never happens that way. So tamper your expectations down for the Los Angeles Lakers. They're not getting every player that comes available in the NBA. But this is massive news. This is massive news that the Dallas Mavericks now potentially have a chance to compete in the Western Conference. The Brooklyn Nets blowing it up, obviously, the Kyrie KD era. But are they going to try to continue to compete, or do they continue to do so before Thursday? Kevin Durant's a guy that you could get an absolute haul for. Maybe you would want to wait till the summer when you can really spend time negotiating with teams and seeing what could really come available. Or maybe you get an offer you really like and feel like you can reset. So we'll see what happens with the Brooklyn Nets. The Dallas Mavericks will be must-see television with Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic on the court. That chemistry experiment's going to be wild. That's going to be crazy. We've seen Kyrie Irving play with ball-dominant guys, LeBron, James Harden before. Will he be able to play with Luka Doncic? Will Luka Doncic be able to play with him, I guess, is a better question. That's all we got for you as far as this video goes. We're going to keep talking hoops. Don't forget to subscribe. Cyber go.